When it comes to the Star Wars cinematic universe, you probably think of the main movies, The Mandalorian, or the Clone Wars animated series. But have you heard of Andor? Andor is a live-action series released in September 2022 on Disney+. It was never advertised outside of Disney+, so it's understandable why it didn't do so well compared to Obi-Wan Kenobi, which was released in May 2022. But that one I don't really like or care about. I've been watching Star Wars since I was 5. My dad has always been a huge fan, so I was basically raised on it. We would catch airings of the new Star Wars The Clone Wars series on Cartoon Network on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Now that they're releasing new things like Andor, it brings back that childish joy in my heart. With the new and final season being released in August 2024, I want to inform as many people as possible about it, so that maybe it won't be the last. Today, I will be informing you on why Andor is a masterpiece. First, I'll be talking about the characters. Second, the soundtrack, and third, the cinematography. The first element I will be going over is the characters. This series follows many characters. This includes, but isn't limited to, Cassian Andor, who is our main character. He also made an appearance in Rogue One, and his character is generally, I'd like to describe it as, he tries to avoid conflict, but he ends up finding himself in sticky situations over and over again. The second character is Luthen, who helps Cassian escape from his hometown and from the police. But he also brings him into the rebellion, which Cassian doesn't really want. The next one is Mon Mothma, and she is a senator in the Galactic Senate, and she funds the rebellion behind closed doors. Nobody knows, except for us. We know. And we have Dedra Meero, an Imperial Security Bureau supervisor, and she is absolutely obsessed with rebel activity. Anything to do with rebels, she's on it. And the last character I'll be going over is Cyril Karn. He's a deputy inspector at Preox Morlana, or also known as Pre-Mor, and he is obsessed with catching Andor after the murder of 2 Pre-Mor employees. Now that you know the main characters, let's move on to my second point, the soundtrack. Andor's soundtrack is composed by Nicholas Britell, who also composed the soundtrack for Succession, Moonlight, and many more. He does an amazing job of creating music that makes you feel things like sadness and excitement, with and without the visual aid of cinematography. Britell brought up in an interview on the Triad of The Force YouTube channel that the different openings weren't planned. When he was composing the openings for the episodes, he said he would think about the previous episode and then the current one, and then tailor it to each episode. This series understands that you don't need music in the background of every scene, but it also understands the importance of music in certain scenes. I remember the first time watching it and just like hearing the music in the background, and it just made me want to listen to it more. So I remember listening to it while I did my homework and while I was just hanging out. The third and final element that makes Andor a masterpiece is the cinematography. This show does an amazing job of showing you and not telling you. Whether it be the reactions of other characters or the smaller details that the characters don't know yet, using a mixture of longer shots and shorter shots to convey feelings. For example, in the first episode, Cassian is going back to his ship when he gets stopped by 2 Pre-Mor employees, and the shot stays close to him so you can't see who's behind him. You just see the figures and you hear their voices. And it just gives you that sense of claustrophobia, and it makes you scared of what's next. Something that helps the cinematography is the sets, and how they look so real and lived in. When it comes to newer shows coming out, like Book of Boba Fett, it's more about nostalgia and not about the sets, so the sets are very low quality. But with Andor, there's so much detail in them that every time you watch it, you find something new to look at. On the YouTube channel Shaffrillas Productions, he brings up Andor, more specifically the sets and how they make it feel more realistic. In conclusion, I have told you the 3 things that make Andor a masterpiece. First, I talked about the characters. Second, the soundtrack. And third, the cinematography. So next time you open up Disney Plus looking for something to watch, I hope you consider giving Andor a shot.